All right. Hello and welcome to Critical Conversations. I'm your host, Karissa Dean. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today around the importance and the value of cultivating community and really creating connections. And I want to talk about this because it's so important. And I think that this is like part of this really odd post-COVID hangover that we're having. I know I'm experiencing it, and I know there are others in my immediate circle who are experiencing it. I know there's clients who are experiencing it. It's as if when COVID happened, we all jumped online and we realized how important community was. But we kind of also realized how important the solitude was of really like loving where you live, loving who you live with. And I think, we're 4 years out from this pandemic that really like created a giant halt in life. And I really believe that COVID gave us the opportunity to really get to know ourselves and really create what we wanted. But I think now, 4 years later, we're still trying to figure it out. And I think that this is like it's not, I don't want to say it's not a hot topic, but it's kind of not a hot topic because it's almost as if, we're like just back to doing life like it's 2019 and we didn't go through this giant pandemic that gave us this opportunity to be like, are you happy at your work? Are you happy in your friendships? Are you happy with your family? Are you happy where you're living? And I feel like we were in this weird place where we kind of forgot that we can show up differently. We can do life differently. We can be more curious about, what are the drivers of joy in our life. And so I want to talk about this. I want to talk about connections, but I want to talk about genuine, deep, authentic, like fulfilling connections. I'm talking like the kind of connection that hours pass by and you're like, oh shit, I have to go home. The kind of connections where it's like you feel so lit up. Your cup is now full. Maybe you walked into the situation, maybe you were a little bit depleted, and now you're literally like beaming. These are like the connections where you get together and then you walk away and you're buzzing, like you're literally vibrating on a different level. These are the kind of connections I'm talking about. This is the type of community I'm talking about. And it's so important. And it's definitely something that I think we considered a little bit during COVID, because what COVID was is different opinions, different belief systems. Like there was a lot of people who wanted to argue over all the details of COVID. And now that we're kind of beyond that, I think we're kind of like rediscovering, but unconsciously rediscovering who are our people, who are the like-minded thinkers. And I'm using this COVID example because I think we had it for a hot sec. We had this like, I'm coming together, like we created pods of people, right? And you had to be really like-minded in the pod that you chose, right? Like this is what I'm talking about. You had to really think about, okay, do I trust this person? Is this somebody I want to open myself up to? Is this worth the risk, right? Are they doing the things that I'm doing? And therefore it makes sense for us to connect with each other, to, meet in the park or whatever it is that you're doing. I mean, I'm not talking about the details of the pandemic. I'm talking about the power of the connections we chose to have, because you weren't just hanging out with everyone. But now there's like this weird hangover happening where, are you actually surrounding yourself with the like-minded thinkers that you probably gave a little bit more intentional thought to when the world was in a pandemic? And so I want to talk about the power of this because it's really the key to unlocking our greatest abundance. And it's something that I'm really cultivating awareness around now. I think when you get into community or conversation with women, you can become what the normal of that group is, right? So this is like what they would call group think in psychology, right? So there's so many pathways we could go down, and there's so many things, but I really want you to start thinking about this as like a group think. So the people you're connecting with. So it's like the top 5 people who you're texting with every day. Who are you calling every day? What are the conversations you're having at your workplace? Maybe your workplace is in your basement by yourself. So then it turns to, what are you reading? Whether it's a book or social media or a blog post. What are you listening to? Podcasts. What are you watching at night? What are those nighttime routines, nighttime conversations? There's a group think that is happening. And the more unconscious you are in these group think environments, the more you are exposing yourself to become someone else's thoughts. And I want to say that again. Group think. The more you surround yourself and expose yourself to other people's opinions and thoughts and beliefs, their behaviors, the more you lose your own voice. This is like, I think we've all heard this at one point or another. And if you haven't, I'm really happy for you, because I think it profoundly influenced me at a very young age. You are your friend group. And if you didn't hear that growing up, you probably have a little more voice, and or maybe you're really like introverted and you don't have a group. But I remember hearing this at a young age and thinking, what does that mean? And what the background I didn't get on that was, you're going to eat what your friends eat, right? You're going to do the activities that your friends do. You're going to, have the same values or belief systems more often than not. And I'm not saying that this is like all or nothing, but it's like that group think gets together. So you are what your friends are, is the concept of, if your friends are all into sports, there's the high probability that you are going to get into sports. If your friends all eat at Buffalo Wild Wings, there's a high probability that you are now going to love Buffalo Wild Wings, right? And so I think that's like this like deeper like layer. And so I want to scale it back, because I think when you're younger, you are kind of just doing what, like, oh, that's just what we do, right? That's why you have like your little party group, and you have your like, we go to the mall group, and you have your, we play sports after school group. Like that is where I think, when we look back on high school, that's where cliques come from, is because it's this group think. And I think when we, for me, I went to college, and then it's like my group think kind of started to change, because I had an opportunity to be like, what is it that I'm doing? And so I got a little more curious, but there was still like, okay, here's my roommate. And then we have, neighbors next door, and, oh, you're dating this person and he's a football player. So now like, that's what we do. Like, so I want you to start looking and cultivating an awareness around this groupthink context. Now we're going to take it through our adolescent years and into wherever you are right now. I don't even know how old I am. I'm 36, going on 37. And the closer I get to 40, the more curious I get about, am I living authentically? Am I surrounding myself with people who are doing what I'm doing? And so it's like when I'm alone here in my office, I can really cultivate this clarity around, this is what I want to create. But the problem is I leave my office, I close the door, I turn all the devices off, and then I'm out in the real world. Am I having conversations in the real world that align with the clarity I found in the basement in my office? And then it's like, it goes beyond that. My friend group, I have friends who we went to grade school together with. I have friends who we grew up in the church with. I have friends who I met in college. I have friends who I've met because they were my husband's partners or friends. I have friends because they were a neighbor at some point. There are people, who come into your life. And it's like, there are reasons to create that connection, right? Okay, well, we live in the same neighborhood. We can be friends. Okay, well, your kid's going to swim class. My kid's going to swim class. We can be friends, you know? And so I think it's like you create a lot of unconscious relationships in your life because it's easy, it's convenient, you're doing the same thing. And what I'm begging you to think about in this conversation is that what you want to be doing? Is that where your energy is best invested? And I'm bringing these questions to you not because I have the answers, but because it's the same thing I'm asking myself. And over my personal development journey over the last 5 years, there have been a lot of relationships that have not been able to sustain themselves for one reason or another. But one big reason is because I started to stop trying to create connections where I was not getting my cup filled, where it was like out of obligation or it was out of a necessity. And so I think the thing to consider here that's so important that we don't often take time to slow down about is you don't have to be best friends with everyone. And you don't have to make time for everyone. But what you should be doing is making time for others who are in a group think that you're curious about. So for me, 3 years ago, I did a 10-day Vipassana silent retreat. There are people now who I'm like, I love this person. We went and did this amazing thing together. You meet each other at the end and it's like this amazing thing. When you, after 10 days of being on your own, you get to connect with all these people and, you're looking at each other's shoes being like, I saw your shoes all week. They're so cute. Oh, I saw your jacket. But the whole week you haven't made eye contact. So my point is though, you insert yourself and then it's like at the end you have all these ways that you can connect, but it's like so important for you to go back to the silence and be like, but is that my vibe? Is that my group think, right? Like, so here I was in this community for 10 days. We're obviously all very group think, like-minded. We're all here, right? We all committed to do this thing for 10 days. But then it's like you go out and you have these conversations and you have to really audit. Well, just because we're all here doing the same thing doesn't mean that we all think or believe or hold the same value or are going the same place. So what ended up happening is I'm there. I was one of the younger ones, not the youngest. And I'm like gearing up my life. I'm like here because I want to build something. I'm here because I want to create something. And I really wanted the grounded clarity of what is that? Whereas like a lot of the other people are in their 40s and 50s and they're like, they want to slow down. They've been in the hustle. They're tired of it, and their thought wasn't, how do I do more business? How do I do business better? How do I cultivate change? Their whole thing was like, my kids all just moved out. I just got a divorce. They're at a different phase of life. And it's not that they aren't these beautiful, amazing humans that I wanted to like support and love on and connect with. But it's like, we all leave this space and it's normal that we aren't then connected outside of it because the group think wasn't strong enough to sustain the relationship beyond it, because in all actuality, the one thread of groupthink was this short version of our everyday lives. And so what I want you to be thinking about is like, are you in connections and in relationships on this shorter version of life? Or are you finding your tribe that is like, let's build, let's grow? Like whatever you're building, whatever you're growing, they're like in it for that transformation, or they're in it for that, like, life vision commitment. This is the thing. It's about auditing the whole version of you, right? So the Vipassana version of Karissa could jam out with these people all fucking year long. but that's a very small version of Karissa. Karissa is very multifaceted. And so Karissa needs to get her cup filled in the different avenues that resonate with her. And so I want you to audit the places that you're going to get fueled up. And I'm not suggesting that you have to have all the same things in common with these people, but there has to be a thread of we're growing and going, or we're slowing down and we're chilling. Like, I know there's some people in that Vipassana group who are super connected because they're in the same season of life where they're slowing down, right? This is often where you look at the friend group that, you know, you guys used to go out and party all the time. And, you know, I think whether or not you've experienced this firsthand, you've seen it on a movie or read about it in a book or watched other relationships, maybe, you know, maybe a partner or a spouse. But you can see how it's like, you know, God, I feel like there's a movie and I just can't think of the name, but the dynamic would be similar to, okay, we all come together, we drink, we party all weekend. And then at some point somebody decides, well, actually, I'm going to build this business, or I'm going to get married, or we're having a baby, and life changes. And suddenly that group that was getting together to drink all weekend is no longer sustainable. And then this is where you start feeling this discord, and, you know, maybe there's some arguments, maybe, you know, maybe it just like kind of fizzles out naturally. Maybe there's no hard feelings, but the group's dynamic is no longer stabilized. Well, then you have this person who maybe is like, shit, who are my people now? You know, they didn't take the opportunity to diversify themselves. They didn't, you know, open themselves up to the next circle or the next group think, you know. And so this is what I want you to start getting awareness around. And what I want to give you is the permission to let it evolve and change. You know, there was a big period of my life where I was in dance team, and everyone I was talking to was either coaching dance team, judging dance team, choreographing dance team, worked in a dance studio. I mean, it was just like, if you weren't a dancer, I wasn't really talking to you. All my friends, like the people who I would happy hour with, like everything was revolving around dance. And it's really funny. It's actually, I mean, it's really hurtful in a lot of ways. But the moment I decided I was tired of the drama of the dance team world, and I started to pull away, and I stopped judging first. And then I stopped choreographing. And then eventually it led, you know, I retired from coaching. I don't talk to anybody anymore in the dance team world. There are like 2 or 3 people who I'm very like loosely connected with, but that's what I'm talking about, is when you put all your emphasis on this one basket, but then you realize this basket no longer fits who I am. This circle is no longer mine. And you decide to change. You have to rebuild community, and you have to find the community that has the same group think, right? So this is where I think COVID steered us a little wrong, or where we kind of dropped the ball for ourselves, is instead of getting curious about, okay, how are you doing life now? I think what we're seeing, what I'm witnessing in my own life and with clients, is we kind of just like stopped altogether. And now I think 4 years later, some of us are starting to get curious about, where are we cultivating connections? What does that look like? Who are my people? Where do I go to get my cup filled up? Because the thing is you have to remember, you know, hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years ago, we needed each other. You know, I'm going to speak for just a brief moment about women, because women worked together. Men worked together, but it was like women back in the day were raising each other's babies, because maybe you're really good at basket weaving and you're faster at it. So you're weaving all the basket, and mom over here is taking care of all the kids, and mom over here is cooking all the meals. And it's like, we're helping each other. So it was like, we had a community. We had this group think back in the day. And it was very conscious. It was very much around like, we can support each other. You're really good at this. I'm really good at this. Okay, we're going to trade off, right? This is before we had money. This is before, we created these currencies where we're going to exchange dollars for goods or services, but actually we're just all coming together to support each other. And this is what I'm curious about. Like, am I the only one who wants to get back to this, where there's no currency exchange? There's just genuine cup filling. Oh, you have water? Amazing. Can I have some? Oh, wow, you made the cup? Holy shit. Let me hold both of your kids while you make my cup and you fill it. Like, this is what I think we're missing and we're not talking about. And it's on an unspoken, unconscious level. I don't even think we're aware of it. But this is what's happening, as I'm growing up, as I'm getting older. Like I said, I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30. And I'm sure as shit far away from, being in high school and college. And I'm getting clearer about who I am the older I get, but I'm also starting to have this really deep awareness of what fulfills me. There are certain conversations that I don't want to have because I think it's fucking pointless. And I don't have time for that because the clarity of my vision and where I'm going, I'm busy, man. I got work to do. And so it's so important for me to monitor and to pay attention and be like, high five, boo, love you, proud of you, keep doing you, but I got to go over here and have this conversation. I got to fill my cup up over here because this is where I'm getting the ideas. I just went out to lunch yesterday with a friend who I hadn't seen in over a year. We hadn't really connected. And I was like, damn, this is the conversation I want to be having. She's a professional, busy woman. I'm a professional, busy woman. We live a little bit far from each other, but it's like I went out of my way. I was like, man, it has been forever. And I need to remember why I love you. And we both walked away and we were like, man, our cups are so full. And it was like, okay, we got to take more time for this because the work it took to drive to her and, cultivate, okay, when are we doing this? How are we doing this? All the details, right? It takes energy to create all the details and get it all banged out. But what happened is my cup was so full when I left. And I had ideas because I wanted to talk business. I wanted to talk legal stuff. I wanted to talk, about growth and evolution. And, what do you think is going on? Like, how are you feeling about this? How do you create business connections? Like, how do you network? Like, it was like all this stuff that I really wanted to talk about. And I had to find somebody who was ready to be like, oh, I love this. And let me put on my like-minded thinking cap because I actually believe in what you're doing and I want to support you. And this is like the piece, the closer I get to 40, the more I'm like, I don't have time to just go, talk about things that don't align with where I'm going. I just don't have time. And it's not that there's nothing wrong with you if you want to do those things, but I know where I'm going. And I've finally given myself permission to align with people who are going to help me get there. And it's not because I want to take from them or anything like that. It's that I want to go somewhere and I want to be inspired along the way. I don't want to feel alone. And so creating community and connections with people who want to go with me or who want to be like, girl, I don't know how to help you, but I got a hand on your back and I'm going to help you go up this crazy fucking hill, right? They're there. I can feel them, right? I can feel their energy. I can feel their enthusiasm for what I'm trying to create. And so I want to encourage you to start paying more attention. Who are you hanging out with? Do they fill your cup? Do they drain you? And damn it, here's your permission to just not. This is your permission to just say no. It's not a fuck you all the time. It's not a I don't love you. It's not that I don't value you or what you're doing, but in the season of life that I am in, I need to be mindful and I'm worthy of only entering rooms and creating connections with people who are gonna think like me, who want to plug in and group think with me. And this is why I created the hub, which is a I mean, you could call it a mastermind, but it's a group, it's executives and entrepreneurs. There is something different about sitting down with somebody who's trying to grow a business, sustain a business. Maybe they're pivoting their business. Maybe they're brand new to business. Maybe they've been in business for 25 years and they're like, damn, it's just like, I haven't thought about how I'm doing business and I just need fresh perspective. I just need fresh eyes. But it's that group think. We're coming together to think as a group. And the group is energizing each other and enthusiastic about business, and I think I'm really sensitive to this topic lately because I'm starting to see where certain friendships or relationships, people don't get it. If you're not an entrepreneur, you don't get it. And if you're not a really hungry, motivated entrepreneur, you really don't get it. If you're just cool with just having enough to pay your bills and that's all you need, you're kind of what's the word I want to think of? I can't think of the word. It's gone from my brain. But if you are not wanting to really, go big, right? If you're kind of just I'm happy. I have my boundaries. I have my, this is my system. This is my order of operations. Things are working. I don't need to rock the boat. If you are kind of in that, high five, proud of you, but I really want to build something big because the community aspect is huge for me. And I understand that the more I can create in my business, the more opportunities I can give to others. And so it's the bigger we all get, right? This is that coming together, that group think. And so I'm going to these networking events. I'm doing these things. I'm having these conversations. I mean, I can't even tell you last summer how many people I talked to who, Karissa, I'm going to connect you to this person. I think they would be a great connection for you to have. I get on the phone, I talk to them, and they're kind of just yeah, I'm good, or they say, oh yeah, we'd love to do this thing with you or whatever it is, right? I mean, I talk to people all the time for all my different businesses and half of them come to fruition and become something. And the other half, it's yeah, it's a lot of work and I don't really want to. And I'm man, I love work. So it's important for me, I created the hub because I want to be in a room with people who want to work and not that I want to work 15-hour days and be a slave driver, but I want to be inspired by my work. And so being in a room with groupthink of inspired people who are ready to fall back in love with their work, or they do love their work, or they're really good at their work, and that's motivating. It's I want to be in those rooms. Those are the conversations I want to have. And so that's why I created the hub, because it's not about me. It's not about you. It's about how do we come together? I just want to connect with you because you being inspired about what you're creating in life gets me fired up about what I'm creating. You sharing that you're having a low season and X, Y, and Z is hard, or this is happening, that inspires me when I'm having a hard season, when I'm feeling the lull of life. And so connections are everything. And you're either connecting with people who are pushing you up that hill, or patting you on the back, or being let's go. Or you're connecting with people who are oh yeah, just have another drink. Fuck it. Who cares? Whatever. You don't need to wake up early tomorrow. Skip your meditation. Don't do yoga. No, I don't have time for that. I genuinely feel better when I do the things that I'm doing. And I want to be supported in that group think. Right. And so this is where it's important for us to audit the groups that we're entering, the conversations we're entering, the connections that we're making, and the ones that we're clinging onto. With my, share around dance team and the way that it all ended, it was fucking horrific. Absolutely horrific. I hated it. I hated the way it ended. My last year of coaching was a nightmare for me, for the kids, for the parents, because I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to think like that anymore. I had expanded myself And I was holding on to something that was no longer for me, and everyone knew it. And, I wasn't my best version because I really didn't want to think a certain way anymore. I really was wanting to create impact in a different way, but I was holding on to this way of being that I understood. And it was really uncomfortable. Last year was probably the most uncomfortable year I've had in my whole life. A lot of things changed for me, and not just in my professional life and not just with like the extracurricular of coaching dance team, but even in my marriage and my relationship with my daughter and my physical well-being and the exercise choices I was making. And in my friend groups, I really had to get honest with like, what the fuck am I doing? Who am I? I'm showing up in this room. I know how to coach dance team. I know how to create epic routines, but I really don't want to be here. And I really don't want to think like this anymore. I don't want to think about dance anymore. And it's not that it's bad. There's nothing bad about it. But it's like, if you don't start to honor where you want to be, you really are creating some shitty situations for you, but you're also creating shitty situations for everyone around you. I look back and I'm like, God, I feel so bad for, like, I loved my kids, but I feel bad for them because they deserved a coach who was madly in love with it, somebody who was obsessed about it, right? And the parents deserved that too. And, it was a challenging dynamic. The parents, there was a lot of pushback, there was a lot of drama that didn't need to exist. And, it wasn't until I got that hindsight to really see that my own behaviors and choices led to that. And it's not that I was doing anything bad. I wasn't saying anything bad. It was just, I wasn't in the right room. I wasn't wanting to think like that anymore. And so this is the thing is if you're facing adversity, if you're facing challenging situations, if you're facing dynamics where it just doesn't fill your cup, you're probably in the wrong room. You're probably connecting with not your people. And that's a common thing that I pay attention to now, where I'm like, I enter rooms and I really like take off all my armor and I'm like, I want to know you, because if you're my people, I'm going to like put the armor back on and let's go to fucking war with whatever needs to happen. But like, if you're not my people, I want to help you find your people, So I think the piece of us coming together, especially as women, is the piece of like, we can empower each other by understanding that your conversation can be different from mine, and that's okay. There's no good and bad about it. It's just that maybe we're not meant to be in the same group think, right? Your group think gets to be different. This is where you have like the people who are doing keto and people who are paleo and people who are vegan. It's like, all of that's good. All of it's good. And unless we can come together and fill each other's cups, we just need to go be with our like-minded group, because you deserve to be inspired and empowered to live the way that you want to live. And I want you to feel empowered to change that if it doesn't feel good anymore. And I think that's the permission I needed to leave dance team, was like, it doesn't feel good anymore. And that's okay. It's nobody's fault, really. Right? It's nobody's fault, really. It was a multitude of things that happened in all the different things. And it's okay. And I needed the permission to leave. Not because I'm bad, not because they're bad, not because I'm better or they are good and they're not. Like it literally has nothing to do with anything except for it's not where I need to be with the vision of where I'm going. And so who you're connecting with, who you're creating relationships with matters so much. And it gets to evolve. It gets to change. You get to pivot. You get to choose you. You have to choose you. Your sanity depends on it. And your abundance depends on it. When you get into the right rooms and you start having the right conversations, everything changes Oh man, I mean, everything changes. So wherever you're at, whatever you're up to, this is just about giving you permission to find your group think, find your people, you know, and you need people, you need them. This is, you know, this is a whole nother podcast episode, but we do need each other. We've forgotten that because we entered money and currency into the game, but we need each other. And we don't need each other on this surfacey level where it's like, oh, you look so cute. How are you? I'm good. Okay, bye. Like, no, this is like armor's off. I'm going to reach into your heart. I'm going to spin it around. I'm going to pull out some guts. Tell me about these guts. Like, we need the authenticity of like going deeper, of peeling back each other's onions, because that's where we really start to cultivate the abundance and the change that I think we all actually want. It's just like we're so armored up all the time. And I think if we stopped armoring up and we started getting into the like-minded rooms and we celebrated the differences of each other, right? Like I celebrate the women who are at that Vipassana who are like, I'm done. Like, I'm chilling out. Like, I celebrate that. I think that's fucking awesome. I love that they got so curious about what wasn't working in their life, and now they're finally honoring it, and they're doing the things that fill them up. And then they're creating the communities that make them feel good about that choice. I celebrate our differences, and I think we want to. I actually believe we want to. I believe we want to celebrate each other, but we don't because we allow judgment to get in the way. And I think judgment exists because we're not honoring ourselves. Because really, when you're judging somebody else, you're judging you. And if you can peel that armor off, I think that's where you're really going to step into freedom and abundance. So, random rant of the day. Community is important, but it's not just choosing a community that you should choose. It's about creating the community that's going where you're going or celebrating and helping you, pushing you. So if they're not walking with you, you can feel them. Their energy is behind you in support of where you're going. That's community. That's connection. That's genuine women empowerment. That's me saying, I have no idea where you're going. Sounds really cool. I'm behind you. Like, you got this. That's what we need in the world. So I hope you walk away with something. I would love any feedback or notes from you guys. Remember that, you know, as a small business, you know, every time that you like, every time that you share, every time that you know, engage with the content of a creator, you really are supporting where they're going and their vision. So make sure to keep doing that for small business. The little guys need you more than the big guys need you. So keep that in mind when you're listening to podcasts. You know, every like, every share, every follow, it really is a big deal for the little guy. So I'm still a little guy. I don't know exactly what will happen, but I'm so excited to be here. I'm really thankful for those of you who are still listening, and I hope you will tune in for the next one next week.